I never meant for it to feel like a secret. Ethan and I just understood each other. We met during late library hours. Two students buried under deadlines and half-empty coffee cups. He was easy to talk to, funny in that careless way that made stress dissolve. I told myself we were just friends. Then one night, he said something that changed everything. "Mia, you're the only one who really listens." There was a pause. Too long, too heavy. That's when he confessed. He had a girlfriend, Clara, and suddenly every laugh, every late text felt tainted. But he asked me to keep it between us. Said it was complicated. Said he trusted me. And I said yes. Without realizing, I just stepped into someone else's storm. The next day, he acted like nothing happened. Same jokes, same half smile when he saw me across the quad. But every glance carried a new weight, a shared secret that made my heart race and stomach twist. I started noticing things I hadn't before. How easily he said my name. How often he found reasons to talk. I told myself it didn't mean anything, that I was just helping him through a rough patch. But deep down I already knew this wasn't friendship anymore. I tried to tell Lila, my roommate, but the words stuck. How do you explain being part of something wrong, even if it never crossed the line? I didn't want judgment, just understand it. Lila watched me carefully, the way people do when they already know the answer you're avoiding. She said, "If you have to hide it, Mia, it's already too much." That night, Ethan texted again. Just a meme, harmless enough. But it came at midnight, like every message lately. And even though I didn't reply, I stared at it for minutes, waiting for something more. Something that shouldn't come. I wish I'd said no. I wish I'd told him to figure things out with Clara before dragging me in. But back then, I thought being needed was the same as being loved. I didn't see how close we were to breaking something or someone that wasn't ours to touch. After that night, everything changed. Quietly, like a whisper slipping into routine. Ethan started waiting for me after class, walking beside me as if it was normal. We didn't touch, didn't say what we both knew, but every text, every inside joke tightened the thread between us. I kept telling myself I was helping him figure things out, but in truth I was already deep in something I couldn't name. And every time Clara's name popped up on his phone, I felt an ache I had no right to feel. Sometimes he'd vent about Clara, how she was distant, how he didn't feel understood anymore. I'd listen, nod, offer comfort I shouldn't. Every story about their fights made me feel guilty and relieved at once, like I was being handed pieces of a relationship that wasn't mine to hold. Clara smiled at me once that week. A genuine, kind smile, and I almost broke down right there. She had no idea, no clue that her boyfriend's secrets were echoing in my inbox, that her name made my stomach twist every time Ethan said it. Guilt had started to live beneath my skin, humming louder with each message I didn't delete. That night, I found myself scrolling through our messages again. The jokes, the late-night check-ins, the moments that felt like confessions. I kept telling myself it wasn't wrong because there was no kiss, no promise. But looking at those words, I realized how easily we'd crossed into something that looked exactly like love, only without the courage to call it that. It was Jaden who noticed first, Ethan's roommate. He caught me leaving their dorm one afternoon, holding a notebook Ethan had forgotten. The way he looked at me said he knew more than he should. He didn't say a word, but his silence felt like a warning. For the first time, I saw what we must have looked like from the outside. Not innocent, not harmless, just two people standing too close to the edge, pretending not to fall. Clara wasn't supposed to notice. But people always do. Eventually, she began asking quiet questions. Who Ethan was studying with, why he'd stopped answering her calls at night. I laughed it off when he told me, pretending it didn't sting. But her name had started haunting every corner of our conversations. Even when she wasn't there, she was. Like a ghost standing between us, watching everything we said, but couldn't admit. I started avoiding Clara in the cafeteria. The way her eyes searched the room made my chest tighten. Every time I saw them together, smiling like everything was fine, my guilt grew heavier. I wanted to disappear, but part of me couldn't look away. Watching them was like staring at a photograph of something already broken, pretending the cracks weren't there. Lila noticed the way I froze whenever Ethan's name came up. She didn't push, not at first. But one night she said, "You're building something on borrowed time, Mia. You know that, right?" I didn't answer, because she was right, and because saying it out loud would make it real. The next week, Clara found one of Ethan's hoodies in the back of my chair during a group meeting. She didn't say anything, just looked at it, then at me. I mumbled something about him lending it to me. Her smile was small, too polite to be real. That's when I knew. She didn't believe me. And worse, she didn't have to. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying her look. Calm, quiet, devastating. I realized then that Clara wasn't blind. She was waiting for one of us to slip, and deep down, I knew we already had. The truth was no longer hiding. It was watching us, waiting to be found. It started with a notification. A ping I wish had never happened. Clara had borrowed Ethan's laptop for a group project while he stepped out. I didn't think she'd notice the messages. I didn't think anyone would. But when I saw her reaction later, the air itself seemed to freeze. Eyes widening, fingers trembling, phone in hand. The reality of what we'd done hit like a tidal wave. Her eyes scanned every message. The jokes, the late-night confessions, the "I'm here for you" texts that were never meant for her. Each word landed like a hammer, and I realized we hadn't just been careless. We'd been complicit. Every lie, every secret, every silent smile I'd exchanged with Ethan was now an open wound. Then she texted me directly. Screenshots attached. No explanation needed. The weight of every unread message, every shared confidence, slammed into me all at once. I wanted to disappear, to rewind time. But the truth wasn't going anywhere. It was finally here, and it wanted me to own it. I couldn't call Ethan. I couldn't explain. Every word I might say would be too little, too late. Clara's silence on the phone was louder than any accusation. I sat there, heart hammering, watching the little red notification bubble taunt me like a countdown. The secret we'd nurtured in whispers was now loud, bright, and undeniable. And then it happened. A ping back from Clara. Her single message, "We need to talk." 3 words that carried the weight of everything we'd hidden. I stared at them, unable to breathe, knowing the storm had arrived. It wasn't coming. It was already here. The rain started just as Clara cornered us in the courtyard. I could feel every heartbeat like a drum in my chest. Ethan tried to talk, tried to explain, but her eyes, sharp, bright, unrelenting, stopped him before he could say a word. I wanted to vanish, to melt into the puddles beneath our feet. But I couldn't. We were all trapped in this storm of our own making. Nisi, nay. Clara's voice cut through the rain like glass. How long? How long have you been lying to me? Ethan opened his mouth, but no words came. I wanted to tell the truth, but every confession felt like betrayal. I realized then that silence had been my shield, and now it had become my prison. I stepped forward, voice trembling. "Claire, I didn't know how to stop it. I thought I was helping." She stared at me like I had just admitted the unthinkable. Every word was a stone thrown into the river between us, rippling outward, unstoppable. Ethan flinched, guilt etched into every line of his face. And suddenly, I wasn't just protecting him anymore. I was part of the damage. Clara's voice cracked. "You let me fall for a lie, Mia. And you, Ethan. You chose to hide it instead of being honest. Ethan tried to reach for her, but she stepped back. The distance between them almost a physical wall. I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of every secret we'd kept. It wasn't enough to apologize. Nothing could fix this. The storm passed, but the silence didn't. We stood there, soaked and shivering, knowing that nothing could undo the night. I realized then that love built on secrets isn't love at all. It's a chain, and we had all been locked inside. The confrontation ended, but the consequences were just beginning. The campus felt smaller after that night. Whispers followed me down the halls. Eyes lingered longer than they should have, and I could feel the judgment like cold fingers brushing my back. I had thought protecting Ethan was my choice, my secret to carry. But now, I was carrying everyone's pain, and it weighed more than I could bear. Clara didn't speak to me for days. Every time I saw her across campus, I could feel the sting of her hurt. Ethan tried to apologize, but his words sounded hollow, like echoes in an empty room. Even friendships I thought were solid began to shift, as if the air itself had turned fragile, waiting for one wrong move to shatter it completely. Even Lila stopped asking questions. She let me retreat into silence, letting me face the consequences alone. It was strange, the way isolation could feel both suffocating and necessary. I began to understand the truth. Hiding a secret doesn't just hurt the people it's about. It can destroy the person keeping it too. Rumors swirled around Ethan like a storm he couldn't escape. He walked the campus with his head down, the weight of betrayal pressing on his shoulders. I realized that consequences weren't just emotional. They were social, tangible, leaving marks in the quiet corners of hallways, in the whispered words of people who once smiled at us. I sat in the library where it all began, surrounded by silence louder than any words. The desks, the lamps, the empty chairs, everything reminded me of what I had lost and what I had become. It wasn't just the love or the betrayal. It was the silence, the secret, the trust broken. And I finally understood. Some lessons only come through the fallout. Weeks later, I sat in front of the camera in the empty campus studio, trying to find the words that could explain everything without excusing anything. My hands shook, voice caught, but I knew I had to speak. Secrets, I realized, never stay buried. They live in the air, in the shadows, in the quiet moments between people. And it was time to let mine breathe, even if it hurt to do so. I told the story as it was, Ethan's secret, the texts, my silence, not to gain sympathy, not to cast blame, but to own my part. Speaking it aloud made the past tangible. Each word a small release. The truth hurt, yes, but it was the only way to step out from the shadow of guilt I had carried for so long. I paused often, breathing between sentences, remembering Clara's look, sharp, unyielding, a mixture of hurt and strength. I remembered Ethan's guilt, the way he avoided me afterward, how our choices had left marks we couldn't erase. Speaking aloud, I realized the pain was ours to carry, but the silence didn't have to remain. When I finished, there was quiet. The tape ran on, but the weight in my chest had lifted slightly, not completely. Guilt doesn't disappear overnight, but enough to know I had done something honest. I realized then that closure wasn't about forgiveness. It was about truth, about finally letting the story breathe outside my own head. I left the studio and walked across campus at sunrise. The air was crisp, the quad empty, and for the first time in weeks, I felt alone without fear. Secrets don't stay secrets. They just wait to be found. And when they are, the truth can finally set you free. I carried that lesson forward, walking tall, knowing that honesty, no matter how late, was the only way to breathe without sinking.